In this module, we'll advance the project documentation process, transitioning now to the 2D dimension. I'll demonstrate how to utilize the familiar filters and configurations from the previous section to create foundational 2D views tailored to your project's specific needs. Essentially, I'll guide you through the process of generating base view for structural, masonry, finishes, glazing, carpentry, foundation, architectural, or virtually any other type of documentation you might require. We will also place special emphasis on reviewing the label tool, which you can customize freely or more focusedly to extract data from any element within your model, or even better, automatically annotate all the elements with just one command. Feel free to pause and replay the video as many times as you need, and remember that each lesson includes additional materials provided continuously. With that said, let's get started. Okay, as per usual, let's start off our new module talking a little bit about which concepts we are going to delve into. And in this case, we are going to focus on everything related to the 2D documentation. But in this case, it's not just the basic or preliminary project 2D documentation, something we already did in depth in the basic BIM framework with ArchiCAD course. In this case, we want to focus on how you can generate and apply the different filters, the different functions to generate all types of constructive documentation. Well, we got something that doesn't really count since they are the preliminary plans, but we can generate an architectural plan, foundation plan, structural plan, masonry plan, carpentry, glazing, finishes in the floor and the walls, and finishes in the ceiling. But more importantly, something we are going to delve into is the use of the tag tool, which is completely amazing, and it's going to speed up just way too much the documentation process. Because one of the amazing things over here is that you can pretty much select everything, use the auto tag function, and ArchiCAD will tag all the data, all the ID for you. In a similar way we already did in the previous course, Basic BIM Framework, where I explained that you can use the auto annotation commands or auto dimensioning functions that you simply select everything and ArchiCAD will dimension it for you. Or in this case, we're going to apply something similar. In this case, we are just going to focus on generating the different ground floors, because you can apply the same workflow to generate all types of views, sections, elevations. Just keep in mind that these views over here are just for reference purposes. You don't really need to replicate them, they are just there so you can measure the values, visualize the construction, just a basic reference. What I'm going to ask you is to open up the saved progress you got so far in your project, and in the next lesson we're going to start off with the configuration once again of the different layer combinations. Alright, so before we jump into the layer combinations and the documentation process, let's first off solve some basic, really basic things. One of which would be the folder we require for the documentation. Let's simply create a folder in the view map, name it 2D documentation over here, and simply press OK. So that's the first thing. And the second would be to position and create the different grid elements. Now you can use the basic methodology, the basic workflow that I already shared with you in the basic BIM framework, where you can simply position guidelines, you then offset the guidelines, and then you start positioning each of your grids, okay, until you get everything. But in this case, I do believe that it can be just a little bit easier and faster if we simply use the grid system function, something we also covered in Basic BIM Framework. So as you can see, all the grids are pretty much equidistantly distributed. Everything is separated in 3 meters. You got ABC over here, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's go back to ArchiCAD, go over here, design. Let's go to the grid system, and now you can start adjusting the different parameters. So it's going to include a dimension line, a total dimension. Well, the total dimension is going to be separated maybe 0. Okay, and the dimension line, let's make it 0.25. Let's see how it behaves. If it doesn't behave as intended, we can always adjust everything. I'm going to set the anchor point to the top left part over here and auto stagger the grids if they overlap. And the full extension, how about we set it to maybe, let's see how it's going to behave with 0.50. Okay, once again, if it doesn't work, we can simply adjust it. The markers, I'm going to turn on one of the markers to the left, another marker in the top part, but I'm going to deactivate them in the right and on the bottom. For the naming rules, let's set to be, well, we got something as 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the vertical grids or the horizontal grids in this case are going to be set to 1. This one is going to be 1, 2, 3. Okay, and the vertical grids, it's going to start on the left with A, B, C, and this one is going to be A. So it's going to start with 1 on the very top, and it's going to start on A on the very left. Then we got the grid positions. Let's simply delete leftover grids we actually don't require. We simply require ABC. And let's simply distribute everything equidistantly. I believe it's going to be much easier. Or simply set the value 3 meters, and pretty much that's it. So let's cross the fingers. Let's see how it behaves. Now I'm just going to set finally the layer for these grids in the grids and dimension over here. Before we jump into this, we also need to configure some things. The grid element settings. Let's open up this real quick. Let's make sure to set the floor plan definitions for the grids to have some type of dot and dash line over here. So it's looking, okay, it's looking decent. Was the cut section, I'm not going to worry about it too much. Just maybe set it 0 and 5 and maybe the type of line dot and dashed. It's not going to be relevant since we're not going to create a cut section for this case. So yeah, the grids we can say it's pretty much done. Let's configure the dimension. Just click the settings over here. And now let's see if we can adjust a little bit some of the parameters, make it centered. The text is going to always be horizontal. The text height 2 millimeters. It looks good, and pretty much everything is looking decent. Okay, maybe the marker type, but I believe everything is also set. The layer for the dimensions, make sure to set it to grids and dimensions. Simply press OK. And the layer for the grids, let's also make sure that it's set to grids and dimensions. Okay, so fingers crossed. Hopefully I managed to achieve this on the first try. If not, don't forget that everything will stay saved on these settings. So let's press OK. Well, it's still asking for a layer, so I'm just going to choose the layer, press OK, and left click and continue. Well, it's not going to display because actually the layer is hidden. So how about we just turn off the grids and dimension layer, press OK, and well, almost we almost got it on the first try. I think I messed up the direction. It has to start actually on the other side because this one needs to be over here and this one needs to be over here. But no worries, what you can do is simply select all the grids, delete them. Pretty much that's it. Once again, go to design, grid system, and simply invert maybe the naming rules. In this case, instead of starting 1 on the very top, let's set it to be on the very bottom and invert this side over here. So the naming is going to be on this side, the naming is going to be on this side. I usually mess up these ones over here, but as always, it's a little bit of trial and error, no worries. Now for the grids, I noticed that it's still too big, so I'm just going to activate once again the grids over here. And for the markers, how about we make it a little bit less, maybe 8 millimeters, and the text is going to sit at 6, 10 millimeters over here, or 12 millimeters. I think this is the base formula I usually use, so I'm just going to set it 6 and 12. If it's still too big, we also need to adjust the scale, make it 175, 150. So let's simply press OK, and hopefully we can achieve it on this round. So yeah, kind of. Let's make the scale a little bit less, 1 to 50. And now, yeah, it's almost pretty much set. It's looking quite decent. So yeah, we can simply take this first grid, adjust it just a little bit until over here. The same goes for this one. Adjust it just a tiny bit. Adjust this grid over here. So yeah, might as well do it one by one, or once again move the grid system. But we can say that it's pretty much done. We don't really need anything else. You might consider maybe separating the space a little bit over here. Just going to take a minute, maybe 2 minutes, just fine-tune the small details, so I'm happy with the result. Just going to fine-tune some small details, such as this one. Maybe select all the dimensions you got within your project. Set the text to have some type of opaque background, so it stays in front of the line. Now, this is a small detail I haven't noticed before. Something new in the last versions of ArchiCAD. You can notice that you can hide the text between the line, behind the line or on top of the line. Now, this was the reason why it didn't work out in first place. So let's set it to be on the front of the line, press OK. So yeah, pretty much this one is fixed, but we should definitely take this and maybe move it a little bit over here, so it looks much better. The same will apply for this text over here. Okay, it's already fixed. And for the units, because I don't really want that extra decimal place, don't forget you can simply go to Document, Options, Project Preferences, and jump over here where you have the dimensions. In the dimension window, you got the different groups. Well, this is pretty much something we already covered. Right now I'm working with plain meter. I'm just going to take this group, set the decimal places to be 2 for pretty much all the different dimensions I got within the project, because I'm going to use all of them, most likely. And once you are set, simply hit the Store As button, save it with the same name, in this case plain meter, press OK, override it, and hit the OK button. Okay, so pretty much it's fixed. And for the last fine details, well, we pretty much have solved the grid system, so this one is already set. Let's simply go to the view map and make sure to create your 2D documentation folder with the new folder button over here. And pretty much we can say that now we have everything ready to start the 2D documentation process of the different specialties we got within this small example. So before we start documenting the different ground floors, the first thing we have to solve, definitely, because this is where 70% of the work will lie, or the main filter that will give us the documentation we require. The same way we already made sure to generate in the last section the 3D documentation, I will ask you to also take a minute, take as much time as you need, and make sure to program, for this case, the 2D layer combinations. Okay, so let's just make a quick example, just maybe for the architectural plan, the preliminaries, and maybe even so the masonry plan, because this one is going to be interesting. Okay, so let's go over here to ArchiCAD. Make sure to open up the ground floor, because this is where we are going to start the process. And now let's start off with simply the preliminaries. So the preliminaries is simple as it is. You just go over here to your brochure, just going to create maybe the nomenclature 2D 0, something as this. So let's create a new button. I'm just going to create it 0.0 and simply name it preliminaries, or the trace and reference, however you want to call it. And this layer combination, well, we definitely want to deactivate everything except the grids and dimension. So let's turn this one on, and don't forget, click the update status button over here. Now for the next one, which is going to be the architectural plan. Now we have an issue over here in the base ground floor, because we are still visualizing the ceiling, and we definitely want to turn off the ceiling to visualize the architectural plan. So in this case, in ArchiCAD, let's create a new layer combination, name it 2D. I'm going to name it 1.0, small space, and let's name it architecture, just name it as architecture, okay? Or you can name it architecture, another space, name it ground floor, Okay, now from experience, I would highly advise that you go with this type of nomenclature. This is pretty much one of my favorite ways to manage the nomenclature for the layer combinations. You can use a simple ID for the first level, then you can specify the specialty, if whether you are working with architecture, with masonry, with carpentry, glazing, or whichever specialty you are handling, and then finally you specify the objective. If you are going to use this layer combination to generate a ground floor, a section, maybe some type of 3D model, you just need to specify some type of object. Now, this is a quick recommendation I usually give you when naming your different layer combinations, but as always, feel free to configure whichever configuration you want to use for your own project. Okay, so once we have the layer combination, let's select it, and now simply configure the different layers. Let's activate, for example, the sections. For this case, let's activate the architectural symbology we got over here. We definitely don't want the ceiling in this case. We want to visualize the furniture. The bond beams, we don't want them for this case. Even so, we can even deactivate the intersection for the bond beams, something quite important, something we're going to comment in a little bit. But let's for now activate the ground slab. Let's activate maybe the main columns. Let's activate the terrain. I'm not really sure. I'm just going to review. Yeah, the terrain can be turned off for this case, so skip it as it is. The slab is going to be on. The columns, the walls are on. Yeah, the slab, I think it's this one can be off. Wow, okay, I'm just going to set it to be on. Let's make sure to update everything and simply press OK, visualize how we get the result. And yeah, well, pretty much we got it on the first try. So I think that the architectural visualization is correct for this case. We still need to add the different symbology. We need levels for the finished floor level over here. We need maybe the sections, the elevations. But pretty much the main visualization is already solved. So let's see how the preliminaries or the trays will behave. And yeah, this one is as basic as it is. Let's make sure to configure now, maybe for another example, the masonry. Because in the masonry we want to visualize the bond beams, we want to visualize the structure and all the different elements. So once again, let's go to the layer combinations. I'm just going to copy maybe the naming I already got over here. The masonry, I'm just going to see real quick which one is going to be for this case. It's going to be 4.1. Okay, so let's create a new one. I'm just going to paste it. The numbering is going to be 4.0 or 4.1, however you want to call it. This one is going to be masonry. You can even just simplify it, maybe use some type of ID for the specialty, and instead of architecture, name it something as arch, okay? For the masonry, well, this one is going to be ground floor. And now let's activate the different layers. For the masonry, we definitely want the columns, the beams, the walls, the pilasters, the bond beams. We don't want the furniture, nor we want the ceiling. We want the symbology, the correct symbology for this specialty, which is going to be masonry. The architecture is going to be deactivated. Sections are turned on. Grids and dimensions are on. And yeah, let's see if it works out. Simply update the status for the masonry, press OK. And yeah, we can say that the visualization is correct. We can even configure the just preliminary just to visualize better the partial structure display. Instead of having the entire model, set it to core only. Yeah, we definitely still need to configure the correct model view options because we definitely want to deactivate doors and windows. But this is something we are going to fix in the upcoming lesson, so just give it a second. Just focus for now having the correct definitions for your layer combination. Okay, so the dimensions are gone for some reason. I'm just going to once again dimension it manually. But as you can see, the layer combination is quite easy. So what you are going to do and what I'm going to do in these few minutes is I'll take some time. I'll just make sure to configure the base layer combinations for the remaining specialties. Keep in mind that the foundation plan, this one over here, you are not going to use the ground floor, but instead you jump into the foundation floor as it deactivates the trace and reference. Make sure to activate the foundation, and pretty much that's it. So take some time and make sure to program your different layer combinations. Alright, so pretty much I'm done, and before we finish this lesson, you will notice that you have some type of trouble going over here, such as this one. You have these small gaps happening because you got some type of column blocking the way, and well recommended that this will happen because the masonry columns, the masonry pilaster, the columns will subtract automatically a part of your wall. This will happen thanks to the priorities we have in the materials. Now there is something else I also commented, that the layers have this column over here, which will turn on or turn off the intersection. So the easiest way to fix this, because for example you have your architectural ground floor over here, but you still have this issue. What you have to do also is, besides configuring the different layers, you need to go over here to the columns and set this to be, instead of 1, just set it to be something as 2. In this manner, it's not going to intersect now with your walls, and it's not going to subtract a part of the wall even if the layer is turned off. So make sure to select the columns, set this to 2. The same will go for the beams, just in case. The same will go for the bond beams. This one is going to be number 2. And then finally, the same will go for the pilaster. This one is going to be also set in 2. Okay? Once you have everything ready, you also update once again the layer combination. Press OK. And now you can see how the subtraction is not happening, and the wall will display completely fully for architectural display purposes. Okay, now I have a small issue because I'm pretty sure that this happens once when I created the example, because this one is still dashed for some reason. So I'm just going to take a moment to fix this real quick. Options, element attributes, composites. Let's locate the wall and let's set the dashed small over here to definitely solid lines. So this is the reason why I wouldn't recommend setting a dashed line for the core element. With this, it's almost fixed. For the architectural documentation, we might as well set it to entire model so we visualize the finishes. And now we can say that it's pretty much configured. Okay, so as you can see, I got all the layer combinations over here. Trace will turn on the grid system, or will actually turn off everything except the grid system. Then I got architectural ground floor, which will visualize everything including the furniture, but it's not going to visualize the ceiling. Then we got the foundation. Now this one will apply for the foundation floor, will visualize part of the structure. Once again, let's go back to the ground floor, activate the structure. This is where you will turn on all the beams and all the columns and also the ground slab. Then we move on to masonry. So you will turn on once again the pilasters, the small details. Now there is a small issue also going on over here we need to fix. If you notice, this pilaster or the reinforcement is not being displayed correctly. We definitely want this to be displayed in first place. So my advice here to quickly fix this would be to simply select the column tool, press Ctrl A, and make sure that the display order for the columns is set in the bring to front option over here. So in this manner you can visualize all the pilasters, all the columns, and everything now is quite fixed. Okay, we can even double check, maybe once again bring all the grid system to the front so it stays always on top of the pilasters. Okay, so we got the masonry, it's pretty much set. Then we got the finishes. For the finishes, the same thing, you need to specify the intersections. So just select your layers and make sure to set the intersection to a different number. So yeah, pretty much I just made sure that the numbers are different for the elements causing trouble, especially in finishes and carpentry and glazing. Okay, now for carpentry and glazing you will notice that we don't have a symbology, but if you want to add a layer for the symbology, go ahead. It's most likely that in a real project you will definitely have a layer for the symbology. For this example I'm not going to mess around with extra symbology, but I leave the decision up to you. Let's hit OK button. So as you can see, well, let's see with, yeah, it's pretty much fixed for the finishes. So it displays, yeah, it's displaying quite decently. Let's move on to the ceiling finishes. This is the only layer combination where I turn on the ceiling and it will pretty much display this object. You can even, for example, to deactivate the furniture if you want to optimize this a little bit better, so it, ArchiCAD doesn't generate extra vectors in your PDF hidden behind the ceiling. Just small detail to keep in mind. Okay, then we have the carpentry, and then we have the glazing. Okay, well, the glazing, we're still going to fix this real quick. Press OK, and now the pilasters are also set. Well, for the glazing, I definitely also recommend deactivate the furniture, update this so it stays something as basic as it is. Same will go for the carpentry. Maybe also deactivate the furniture, update the layer combination, and now, yeah, pretty much we can say we are almost set. Finishes in walls and floors. I'm going to also deactivate maybe the furniture. So yeah, pretty much we are now completely set with the layer combinations. Now, I know that this is time consuming, but keep in mind that almost 70% of your documentation will simply come from the best configuration you have for your layer combination. So as always, take as much time as you need, but make sure that the layer combinations are programmed and configured as best as possible. And once you are done, now we can move on. So in the next lesson we configure the different model view options. Alright, and once you are set with your different layer combinations, let's proceed now to configure the model view options, because this one will take place especially for the carpentry plan, the glazing plan, where we need extra detail for windows in the case of the glazing, and for the carpentry we need extra detail for the doors. In the same manner we also have the finishes where we might use extra detail in both the windows and the doors. And for example, in the masonry plan, we need the complete opposite. We need to hide the doors and windows and simply leave the opening. So this is the reason we might want to use a different model view option. For this case, in the same manner as in the previous lesson, make sure to jump into model view options. And in this case, instead of just configuring these two, we are going to take some time to configure these 5 different model view options. Okay, so how about we start off with the most basic one, architecture. So let's jump into ArchiCAD. Let's open up model view option. Let's create a new one, which is going to be 2D architecture. Let's name it as ground floor, something as this. You can use whichever naming you want to configure, or you can simply keep it simple, the ID and the objective over here. So for the architectural, just going to rename this to actually something much more basic. So for the architectural specialty, we might deactivate the symbol. Set this to maybe contour only for the beams. For the slabs, maybe show the line. Definitely we want to deactivate the zone stamps. For the doors and windows, well, we might as well hide the different markers and simply leave the element over there. For the curtain wall, skip it, maybe something medium, okay. For the stair options, well, I'm not going to mess around with the stairs. Neither for the railings, I'm just going to leave this as default. For doors and windows, set it to something medium. In 3D, well, it might stay in complete full. And for the miscellaneous options for the architectural specialty, okay, let's keep the opening lines turned on. Accessories are on. Map connections are turned off, and yeah, pretty much everything is completely set. Now let's move on to the next specialty, which is going to be masonry. Okay, let's even set it to structure and masonry. Once again, I'm going to duplicate, just simply create a new one over here, name this structure and masonry, ground floor, maybe something as this. Keep the space over here, press OK. Now for the structure and masonry display, this one will have a symbol. Yeah, we definitely want a contour and axis for all the beams. Maybe deactivate the zones or the zone stamp. The doors and windows, yeah, set it to show opening only, because we definitely want to hide these elements and simply activate the opening. Now if you have an opening tool, you might as well consider maybe set this to some type of symbol, or even so, if you want to simply hide it and set this to opening only, I leave the decision up to you. I'm just going to keep the symbol. Well, the curtain wall, maybe set it to schematic, but it's most likely you are going to turn off the curtain wall, so it doesn't make sense to mess around with this option. The same will apply for the stair. Well, for the stair, we even can deactivate maybe the thread accessories. Simply keep the structure. For the railing, maybe simplify this, simply keep the post and top rail, and maybe deactivate everything else. For everything else, well, this one doesn't make sense because we actually turn off all the doors and windows and skylight, so it doesn't really matter what you input over here because everything is still turned off. And for the miscellaneous options, well, once again, the opening lines doesn't really matter because these ones are already turned off. For the objects, well, you might want to hide the accessories, and you might show the map connections just in case, okay? Now let's move on to the finishes. For the finishes, this is going to be completely the opposite. I'm just going to take architecture as a base, create a new one, finishes, press OK. Now for the finishes, we might keep everything is the same as architecture, but in this case the curtain wall is going to be set to the maximum, stair options to maximum, railing options to maximum, and the doors and windows, these ones, yes, set this to maximum because you are working with finishes. You might well create some type of detail, and you might want to visualize the maximum amount of lines and maximum amount of detail for your elements. The same will apply for skylights. This one is going to be full and full. Moving on, we got the library parts. Maybe activate the opening lines, maybe even some map connections, but pretty much that's it for the finishes. Okay, so just take a minute, in the same manner, finish up configuring the carpentry, the glazing, and pretty much that's it. For the carpentry, you simply need to set the markers. You will turn on the markers and turn off the markers for the windows. And for the glazing, this is going to be vice versa. You turn on the markers for windows and turn off the markers for doors. So yeah, I'm pretty much done. The only difference ones for carpentry, the opening lines are a little bit different. For glazing, it's completely the opposite. For glazing, I set as it is, the markers over here. For windows and skylights, and for carpentry, completely the opposite. Okay, so Let's press OK. So pretty much we're set with the different model view options. Now, for example, we can let's say we combine the masonry ground floor layer combination, and we can combine, for example, the masonry model view option. And as you can see, almost instantly we get the desired result. We just need to turn off the finishes, core only, and now we got the desired visualization we need for the masonry ground floor. For example, for the finishes, we can turn on the layer combination, let's say walls and floors. Let's turn on the entire model, and let's turn off maybe the finishes over here. And once again, as you can see, with the combination of these filters, we get the desired ground floor representation. Okay, so as always, take as much time as you need. Make sure to create the different model view options completely configured. And in the next lesson, now we can proceed with the creation of each of the different specialties. We need to comment some particularities for each ground floor. For example, such as with the masonry plan, we need to comment how we are going to tag everything, how we are going to ID this. For the glazing and carpentry, how we are going to create the tags in doors and windows. And for example, for the finishes, how we are going to create this symbology. But this is something we are going to comment once we get into action. Alright, and having finished working on the different layer combinations, the different model view options, and having solved the basic visualization for the documentation, let's move now on to the working of the different symbology elements we have in the constructive view, such as, for example, the labels. We can pretty much label everything, we can dimension it. This is done completely automatically, and I'm going to explain to you in a bit how you can do so. But first off, let's comment a little bit about how the label tool works, because it's quite an amazing and extremely powerful tool. Now, you can find it over here in the toolbox. You got over here where you got the tools, you got the document group, and this is where you will find this tool called the label tool. Okay, if you select it, you will notice that we got the different geometric methods, something we're going to comment in a little bit. But in first place, how about we just set the layer for now, maybe just ArchiCAD. I'm just going to make a quick example so you can notice the possibilities and the opportunities that the label tool will give you. And how about we take maybe let's simply take the generic label. This is one of the best to start off the explanation, because right when I click on this wall, this is going to happen. If you notice, the label tool will extract all the available data that this wall has, which is just a lot of data, but it just happened with just one click. And the best part is that everything is automatic and everything is linked. This means that, for example, if I take this wall and I modify the wall, the label or the information that the label is displaying will automatically update accordingly to the wall. So for example, you got the dimensions. As you can see, it's going to quantify automatically the dimensions. It's going to quantify automatically the surface area, the projected area, the volume. It's going to give you a breakdown of the different skins or the different materials you got for this composite, and all the possibilities and all the data you got with the label tool. The best part, as always, it's everything is linked, and whichever change you make will always reflect on the label tool. So to sum it up, the label tool will simply visualize the information that a BIM element has. And many of my students, what they usually do is that they simply use the text tool. They will manually type in B1, C1 for the beams and columns, and will do the process 500 times for 3 straight hours without any type of break. And when I tell them you can solve the 500 different labeling elements in just 3 commands automatically, just select everything and auto-label this, the look on the faces is just priceless. So this is something we're gonna get in just a tiny bit. So in first place, I want to make a general overview of the different labels we got over here. You will notice that we got a label for pretty much everything. You can generate completely free. This one is completely free. You can program this however you want, the first one. And then you got specific labels for each case scenario. You got for classifications, you got for components, for profile names, for all types of dimensions, for properties. You got for the openings such as doors, windows, you got the generic label, which I just showed you how you can label everything. Elevations, door windows, skins, stairs, or stair description, a stair dimension. Pretty much these two labels are already included within the stair tool, but this is just an extra that you might want to configure. You can label surface, you can label zones, or the label is completely free. You can pretty much extract any type of data you got within your BIM element through the labels. And this tool is quite useful, and you definitely will use it all the time once you get into the constructive documentation. You can specify text, which is just pretty much the same as we already covered in many different types of tools. The pointer settings is pretty much also the same as with the dimensions. You can even, for example, create let's say we got a column over here, you can create a label that will have the pointer and then the text. So it's going to display something as this. You can turn on and off the pointer by simply clicking this icon. If you turn it on, you can customize pretty much everything from the arrowhead to the sizes to the pointer type. There are many different parameters you can modify. You got, for example, the orientation. Now this one is, especially this parameter over here, is going to be really useful, because once when we get into the finishes, if you remember, we got the walls, and the label will have something as this. It's going to be positioned in some type of orientation to the wall. And also, for example, we got another label for the wall, which is going to do something as this. So you can pretty much customize the orientation, so it will follow the reference line of an element, and customize it to be maybe parallel, to be maybe perpendicular, to maybe have some type of specific degree. How you want to position this label? Well, everything you can set it up over here. You also can, for example, make custom settings, which is much more specific. Not going to cover this for a moment, but pretty much that's it for the label. It's quite simple, but one of the best tools for constructive documentation, and in general for documentation you got within ArchiCAD. So as always, just take a minute, check out the possibilities you got in general aspect, check out the label tool, and in the next lesson we are going to continue covering extra details for the label. And one of the key aspects for the label tool is the geometry method. You have different options. This one is not so important, but most importantly, this one is where the magic happens. Because let's go to the label tool in first place, and how about instead of taking maybe the generic label you got over here, let's just simply activate the text or auto text label type. And let's make sure that the pointer is turned on, because we are going to use this also for the other type of geometric method. So just make sure to activate text auto text, turn on over here the pointer. Doesn't really matter the shape for the pointer, simply hit OK for now. So in first place you got how you want to label your elements, whether it's going to be associative or it's going to be independent. And now this is a concept we also covered in Basic BIM Framework, for example, for especially the railing tool, because we also had something similar. You can create railings which are static or associative. And we mentioned that if it's an associative element, it's going to automatically update with the changes for the context. If you make a change for the slab or for some type of element, the railing or the label is associated with, it's going to automatically update. So, for example, if we take the label, we specify this to be associative and click on this wall. Well, I'm just going to set it to simple for now. I think you have this one also by default. So let's hit once again the wall. You will notice that straight away it's going to give us some type of data automatically. Which type of data? By default, the text or auto text. If I open up this wall, it's going to read the ID we got over here. This is the data that the label is extracting by default. Now keep in mind that this is just by default. You can of course program which type of data completely freely, something we are going to comment in the next lesson. But for now, no need to worry about the data. So this means that, for example, if you change the data over here, let's specify that this is going to be the wall number 1, press OK, the label will also update accordingly. Now you got the second type of method, which is independent. If you click on the wall, it's also going to give you some type of data. Just going to move this label a little bit over here. But this means that this type of label is pretty much the same as, for example, if you use a basic text tool, it's going to be always static. This is where you have to double click and specify whether this is going to be maybe some type of wall, if this is masonry, if this is some type of wood, if it's brick, whichever type of label you want to use. So keep in mind that the first one is automatic or associative. The second one is completely free or independent. Now you also got a small detail over here, which is simply just how you want to construct your pointer. If we select the first method, it's going to give the label straight away automatically, and the pointer, well, the pointer is going to set by default. Okay. And if you activate the second type, which is detailed, this is going to allow you to create 3 specific clicks to specify your pointer. And if you notice, the pointer now has some type of different shape and the label is in another position. So let's say you are labeling multiple data. You got one label here, you got another here, and you want to insert another label which is something like this. So simply use the third method, left click, and position the label, and you don't have to do extra clicks to move the label around and perfect it. You can simply straight away position this completely directly. So as always, just take a minute, check out the geometry method, and in the next lesson I'm going to explain to you how you can start configuring and extracting the different data within your BIM elements. Alright, and having commented how the geometry method works, let's now comment how you can automate the data. So for this case, I'm simply going to delete all the labels I got so far, except maybe this one, which is already associated with this type of wall. Now, keep in mind that if you want to automate the data for your label, you definitely have to associate the label to some type of element. If you set it to be independent, you're not going to be able to automate the data or maybe extract the data from the intended element. It's simply not going to give you that much possibility. So in first place, let's make sure that we have an associative type of label. Just going to create a completely new one. Also, one small tip when you are positioning your labels, be really careful where you press left clicks. You need to be completely sure that you are highlighting the element. For example, I got a grid over here. Yeah, we can label the grid. So the information that is going to extract is going to be referenced within what's available within the grid tool. If you label the wall, the information you have available is what we can extract from the wall. So for this case, I'm just going to keep it for the wall. Let's double click this label over here. You will notice right away we get this box, this text box or text format box. You can format this however you want, but the most important one is going to be this icon over here, which is called the Insert Auto Text button. You also got another for special symbols. For example, you can click the special symbol icon over here and insert any type of symbology you want to use. This is more special, but for this case I'm not going to worry about this. Let's go straight away to Insert Auto Text, and this is the best part for the label. Now, if you notice, so far we are extracting just the first data for this wall, but we can, for example, extract the volume, we can extract the surface area, we can extract the reference line length, we can extract how much height the wall has, and combine the data however you want. So let's make something like, for example, I'm just going to type in ID and double points. So this one will be automated, whichever data you got over here. Let's make another one which is going to be called something as volume. And now let's click Insert Auto Text. what you can do is start reviewing the different groups of parameters you have available. As you can see, since the label is a reference to the wall, you will get this group over here for the wall parameters, which is quite amazing. And you can open this up, and as you can see, that just way too many parameters you can extract. So how about we extract maybe the volume of the columns, you got volume of the wall inside, face component, outside face component, wall complexity, you got surface areas, you got number of holes, how many openings you got in this wall, whether you position some type of window, door, how many columns you have positioned inside this wall. There are just way too many parameters which are extremely useful for your documentation. The other way around, if you feel that, okay, there are just way too many parameters, I just want the volume, that's it, I don't really want anything else, you can always, for example, search for the parameter you need. Let's search for something as volume. You got specific volumes over here, but if you notice, you got general parameters, you got the net volume, and you got gross volume. Now, consider that this is completely different, because when you notice that something is gross and something is net, let's, for example, I'm just going to draw maybe a quick wall over here. Let's say we got columns over here, we got the human scale over here, this is a cut section. So I'm just going to draw some part of the wall that is in between the column, then maybe another column over here, and another part of the wall which is over here. And let's say when we first modeled the wall, we modeled it complete, and we made sure that the columns stay inside the wall. So considering that we have material priority, the column is going to eat up or subtract one part of the volume that the wall has. So if you want to quantify, let's say, the wall as it would be a complete element, you might want to use the volume gross. This one will completely discard all the openings, all the subtraction you have for the wall, and it's going to quantify the element as a complete originally modeled element. Okay, but if, let's say, you just want to consider all the openings, for example, if you got some type of door going on over here, then you got a lintel going on here, and you want to quantify maybe this part which I'm highlighting in blue, you definitely want to quantify this using the volume net, because this one will discard every type of opening, will discard every type of subtraction, and will give you the final data or the net data you require. So this is just a quick tip to keep in mind when you see the term gross and when you see the term net. This is completely different. So for this case, let's take up the net volume, because we want the final volume for this project, and let's say we got something as cubic meter going over here, which is going to be the suffix. Okay, and let's see if we might add something as height. Let's insert another type of data, which is going to be the height that the wall has. So you got specific heights, maximum height of the wall, maybe minimum height, the wall skin. But if you want something general, you can, for example, general parameters, simply set it to height, and it's going to tell you you got a height of 3 and specify maybe the suffix. Let's continue with maybe, let's say composite. Let's see how this one behaves. Not really sure, but let's insert auto text, composite, and in general parameters you have something amazing, building material, composite, profile, fill. See how this one behaves. So yeah, it's just going to repeat the ID. How about we take the composite structure? So it's going to be pretty much the same. Okay, but let's see, we got something else within the wall, maybe the thickness for each of the skins. Well, we can try end thickness of the wall or the final thickness, which is quite useful in this case. Rename this to thickness. Hopefully I wrote it well, because my English is not perfect. Specifies the unit. Let's see if we got something to us for the structure. Let's see how this one will behave. Add another type of data for over here. Let's search for material. Well, maybe this one can help a little bit. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit long, but how about we just leave it for now? And let's finally maybe add something as length, which is going to be length over here. We can use, for example, length of reference line. I think this one is much better for this case. Let's add this data up. Let's specify that the unit is going to be meters. So as you can see, in this manner, automating this data is quite easy, but yeah, you need to be careful with some data because, or even so, you can, for example, just take the label, activate the stretch command over here, and if you make the label a little bit smaller, notice how everything turns into a simple paragraph. And the best part is that if this wall changes, let's say we are going to change the node over here, all this automated data will update accordingly. So this is how pretty much you can, for example, start start combining automatic data, which is highlighted in gray over here, with different types of static data, which you can input however you want, to create your own completely custom label. So as always, take as much time as you need. Check out the auto text or insert auto text function you got over here. And in the next lesson, we're going to continue covering extra details with the label tool. Alright, and having commented the data automation, let's move on to the best function, definitely the best function we got with the label tool. And it's going to save you just way too much time when working in ArchiCAD. So for this example, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a few columns over here. Maybe make another type of column, maybe something else, 30 by 15. Make it a little bit different. And for the first column, the ID, if there's a small trick over here, if you can specify this in two different ways. The easiest way would be select the element and simply use a scroll down on your mouse until you go to the last parameter you got for this column. And this is where you can specify the ID for your elements. So let's say this is going to be column number 1. Something as this. Then we can select the next column, once again scroll down and specify that this one is going to be column number 2. And the second way would be you can simply go to the parameters of your tool and then simply go over here to the last group, classifications and properties, and find this parameter over here, which is the ID. This is the one that we are going to use in the next lessons when we start labeling and documenting the different ground floors. So let's say that this one is going to be column number 3. Just going to provide an ID for this element, press OK, and keep in mind that the ID is universal for all tools. It's not just for columns. You can also find the ID for walls. The same, if you press Ctrl T, you will find classifications and properties. The ID is over here. The same will apply, for example, for doors. If you search for the doors ID, it's over here. And also in classifications and properties, you will always find the ID. And the same detail will apply pretty much with all the different tools, which includes some of them will also be included within the viewpoint and the document tools. So just keep this small detail in mind, okay? Now let's multiply this few times over here. And if you want to label everything over here, let's say label this to be C1, label this C2, C3, and so on. Yeah, there are two different ways. You can once again configure your label. I'm just going to, let's say we just take a moment to configure this a little bit better. And this is the most important step. You definitely want to specify the format for your labels. So make sure to first off input a base type of label linked to your column, okay? Once you have done so, make sure to configure the format however you want. I'm just going to deactivate the pointer and the anchor point, which is extremely important. This one is also important because it will specify how the label is going to be positioned according to the input. whether it's going to be positioned over here, or maybe it's going to be centered, maybe it's going to be on the bottom left part, however you want. I'm just going to set it to the bottom left corner, okay? And the text, let's say the text style is going to be 2 millimeters, a little bit less. Press OK. And now, yeah, we can say that this label is pretty much set. Okay, so now this is the most important step. Make sure to activate the pickup parameter tool and copy the parameters so the different parameters will stay saved up in the label tool. So you can either way pick up the parameters of a label or activate the label tool, modify the different parameters, simply press OK, and the parameters will stay saved up inside the tool. So once you are done specifying the format, what usually my students will do is left click. This is even, well, this one is less troublesome because it's at least it's going to change automatically, because as I already told you, most of my students just use the text tool and they will simply input the text manually, press C1 until they lose minds. But there is even a much better and faster way to solve this. What you can do is simply, I'm just going to delimit the area because I don't want to select the columns I got within my project by accident. So I'm just going to use the marquee tool to specify that just this area. You can select all the columns by activating the column tool. Press Ctrl A to select all the columns over here. And take note of this amazing function. You will go to the menu bar, document over here. And if you go to annotation group, you will notice that we get this amazing option. Label the selected elements. So pretty much what's going to happen is with the format that you specified for your label, it's going to automatically insert a label for each of the selected elements. So let's give it a try. Document, annotation, and label selected elements. And pretty much that's it. So this is where I explain my students that they can automatically label everything instead of pressing left click like 500 times. For example, we can fine tune this a little bit. Maybe once again delimit the area with the marquee tool. Select all the labels by activating the label tool, Ctrl A. And I would simply press Ctrl D to move everything all together and maybe offset this to the corner of the columns. Okay, so as always, take a minute to check out this amazing function, and once you are done, let's proceed with the next lesson. Alright, and once we have covered the different functions and all the functions to finally generate the 2D documentation, let's proceed now with the practical part. And how about we start with one of the easiest one, which is going to be the foundation plan. Now, if you notice over here, we got different labels that, if I'm honest with you, yeah, we should definitely also offset this a little bit so it doesn't interfere with the line for the grids. So just take that small detail in mind. But we need to specify the ID for the foundation. It's just going to be the same foundation for everything. So we can specify to be foundation number 1 and simply label this. So let's go back to ArchiCAD. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these 3D doodles over here and 2D doodles over here. And now let's open up the foundation floor. Now the first things first, we definitely want to set the correct layer combination. For this case, it's going to sit in the foundation over here. Now in second place, let's specify the partial structure display. Let's set it just to entire model just in case. Now the pen sets is something I covered in basic BIM framework. For this course I'm not going to delve into too much for the pens and colors, but keep in mind that you can always configure this to your own liking. And now the model view option is going to sit. How about we set it to 3D detailed, because to be honest with you, I don't think it's going to change that much. So I'm just going to set it to 3D detailed. Graphic overrides, well, I'm not going to set it to any type of graphic override this time. And now what we have to do is select all the foundation. Just going to press Ctrl A to select all the elements I got in my foundation floor. And simply make sure to scroll down until you find the ID and properties. Let's assign the correct ID for this type of element, foundation number 1. Okay, you can even activate the arrow tool, left click over here, or if you want to double check, you can also check it over here in the ID parameter. And once everything is set, let's proceed to activate the label tool. Let's create the first layer because I'm always going to use the auto label tool. So the first label, yeah, it's pretty much almost set, but we need to specify 2 more small details. One of which is, I believe the anchor point is going to be best if we select it in the middle bottom part. And for the layer, make sure to specify and use each of the different symbology layers you got configured for each specialty. For this case, I'm going to set it in symbology structural. Okay, so let's set it for the correct layer. Let's press OK. Let's pick up the parameters for this label over here. Just going to delete the small base label we got over here. And now what we can do is simply select all the walls, document, annotation, and simply activate the label selected elements. Okay, so pretty much that's it. If you want to perfect this a little bit more, you can select all the labels and simply displace them a little bit to the top so they don't interfere with the foundation. Maybe even select the vertical labels you got over here and offset them even a little bit to over here. So as you can see, everything is also already labeled. And now the last part would be to simply save this in the view map. So before we put an end to the lesson, make sure to go over here to the view map. Let's activate the 2D documentation folder we got over here. Just going to open up this real quick. This one is going to be foundation plan number 1. Let's save the view. Click over here, save current view. For the identification, let's set it to custom and custom over here. This one is going to be foundation number 1. You can set the ID however you want. I leave this up to you. I'm going to name it just as a foundation floor. Layer combination, scale, everything else I think it's pretty fine for now. Well, this one I'm not going to cover. 2D and 3D documents. We might as well set the zoom in to fit in window. So let's press the create button, and with this we can put an end to the first step. So as always, make sure to label your base foundation plan. Make sure to save your foundation documentation in the view map. And in the next lesson, we can continue with the structural plan. Now for the structural plan, this one is going to be pretty much the same. First things first, make sure to go back to the project map you got over here, and let's open up the ground floor straight away. So let's proceed by specifying the correct layer combination. For this case, it's going to be structural. Let's proceed with the, maybe even specify the correct model view options, which is going to be structural over here. Let's continue with the partial structure display, which is going to be core only. Now we got some type of trouble over here because if you notice, I'm going to open up this brochure real quick. The structural plan doesn't have any type of floor or any type of hatch going on over here. And keep in mind that, yeah, we can, for example, maybe hide the ground slab, but we still need to visualize the ground slab for the structural documentation. And in second place, we could try to deactivate maybe the cover fill, but this will stay hidden once we get into the finishes. So in the finishes, we need to visualize this, and in the structure we don't. How can we fix this? And this is one of the cases where we want to definitely use the graphical override function. So for this case, let's create a graphic override combination, which is going to be aimed in order to fix this small issue going on here because we still visualize the floor. So let's create a new one. Let's name this 2D no hatches in slab. Yeah, this is the best naming I could come up, but I leave the naming part up to you. Just going to set it to maybe no hatches, something a little bit more simpler. Let's create a new rule, which is going to be new 2D no hatches, something as this. For the selection, I'm going to select the different slabs we got in the project. And for the override style, what's going to happen is we are going to override the field type, which is going to be cover type of field. Just make sure to activate this icon over here. Well, you can even activate the 3 ones if you don't want to mess around too much with these settings. And for the new type of hatch, I'm going to set it to background. So it's going to override the type of hatch. Now let's specify the type of field for the background. Since we are using background, we definitely want to use background type of pen. Let's once again activate the 3 types of icons or hatches we got over here, the fields. And let's set the pen to be something as window background, which is going to be completely white. Maybe even some, just going to rename this real quick. There's no fields. Okay, let's set this, let's press OK. Just going to rename this to a better name. Let's finally add the rules, which is going to be 2D, no fields. Let's add this one up and let's press OK. And now you can see that with just one click or one graphical override, we can fix this small issue going on over here. So in this manner, we definitely don't deactivate the hatches, and we still can differentiate what's going to happen for the floor or the subfloor in the structural plan, and keep the hatch turned on for the finishes both at the same time. Now moving on, let's fix the different columns. I'm going to select the column tool, press Ctrl A to select everything, and let's set the ID to be maybe something as column number 1 over here. So with this, it's going to stay fixed. Now let's do the same for the beams. I'm going to select all the beams in the project and set the ID to be beam number 1, just B1, something as this. Okay, so pretty much that's it for the type of ID. Now the last part would be to specify the labels. So let's select all the columns. Since we already got the label totally configured, let's straight away go to document, annotation over here, and simply label the selected elements. Okay, so it's completely labeled. Before we proceed, one definite recommendation I'm going to give you: make sure not to position the next type of label. First off, make sure to select all the labels, and you would definitely want to group them together. Edit, grouping, and just group all the labels so everything stays connected and it's easier to manage all the columns with just one click and all the beams with one click. So for example, let's just fix this real quick. Right click your label and make sure that it stays on the front of your elements. Okay, now let's fix something also real quick. The position, Ctrl D, we can move the layers and maybe position for this corner, so the labels will always stay outside the column and it's not going to interfere with the lines, with the data we got over here. Now let's proceed to select all the beams we got over here. Once again, document, annotation, and label the selected elements. Okay, now this is the reason why I told you make sure to group the first layer of labels all together, because right over here when you start selecting all the labels, yeah, it's going to select everything, but with one click you can press shift and simply deselect the columns label you got over here. Once again, group the beam label, and with this you can differentiate the column label and the beam label. Once again, let's make sure that the position is a little bit better. I'm just going to move this a little bit and move this to the right a little bit. And now we can say that pretty much the structural documentation is done. So pretty much we did just 3 different things, one of which would be the graphical overrides. Make sure to set this to no fields. And the second, to simply label everything. And once you are done, let's go over here to the view map, select the folder 2D documentation, and finally but not least, save your view. Let's name this to structural number 1. This one is going to be ground floor. The general combinations, I think they are perfect for now. And the zoom in, let's set it to be fit in the window. Let's press the create button over here. And now we got the foundation floor and the ground floor. So as always, take as much time as you need. Make sure to solve the structural documentation. And in the next lesson, we're going to continue now with the masonry type of documentation. Alright, so having solved the structural documentation, let's continue now with the masonry plan. Now, some of the concepts are going to be pretty much the same, but we might just comment a little bit more about how you can dimension this in the fastest way possible and in the best way possible. Also something we already covered in basic BIM framework, but we can also always recapitulate a little bit about this. So in first place, how about we set the correct layer combination, which in this case is going to be the masonry combination. If you notice, the symbology now is gone because we are going to use another layer for the symbology specifically for the masonry. Let's continue now with the partial structure display. Set it to, okay, core only is looking decent. And let's continue with the model view option is going to be pretty much the same. And the graphical override, well, in this case, it's also going to be the same. So pretty much the base visualization is already done. Now we have to be careful when selecting the elements, because if you remember, the columns are pretty much assigned, but we also need to specify the correct ID for the confinement elements. So my suggestion here would be to just for this case, make sure to deactivate everything. And what we can do is, for example, maybe even turn on all the bond beams and lintels. Let's start off with the bond beams, okay? Let's turn this on, and how about we visualize this in the 3D view? So we're going to get something like this, just the bond beams. Let's simply select everything all together, and let's assign the correct ID, which is going to be bond beam number 1. You can name this however you want. I'm just doing a basic translation, but pretty sure in your country you got your own standards. So just going to assign the basic type of data, the basic type of ID. Set it to BB1 or bond beam 1, just something basic. Press OK. And let's do the same for the different pilasters or the different vertical confinement elements. Let's activate first things first the pilaster layer. Press OK. We get something like this. Select everything. And also let's go to the parameters. Don't forget that you can also scroll down and find the ID and properties over here. Or just go to the parameters, classification and properties, and set the ID over here. So for the pilasters, let's make sure that this is going to be something as masonry pilaster 1 or just P1 as pilaster 1. You can set it however you want. I'm just going to set it as we usually do in my region, but in a direct translation. Simply press OK, and now the ID is pretty much done for the elements, okay? So let's once again reset the layer combination. I'm going to set it to once again masonry. Let's go to 2D. Also reset the layer combination in 2D. Now, before we continue, we should definitely be careful when tagging the different elements. So, as we already did in the previous lesson where we started with something and then made sure to group it, let's do the same for this case. How about we start off by tagging the pilasters? I'm just going to deactivate everything except the pilaster. So the process of tagging becomes a little bit easier. Well, except the pilaster and of course the symbology masonry, because this is where we are going to set up the different tags, okay, or the different labels. Let's activate the label tool, set the layer to be in symbology masonry, select pretty much everything, or just press Ctrl A. Okay, let's deactivate the tool, press Ctrl A with the pilaster selected. Let's go ahead to document, annotation, and label the selected elements, okay? So it's going to give us the basic label. Now we should definitely, well, for some reason we got some issue over here. This is the amazing thing about labeling, the labeling process, because you can detect all types of errors quite easy, and masonry pilaster 1, and just fix this real easy. So once again, I'm just going to make sure to have everything corrected. Okay, it's looking good. Let's select the labels and press Ctrl G to group them. You can also go over here to edit, grouping, and simply activate the group button over here, or Ctrl G, however you want to. And once you have grouped everything, let's make sure that we set all the labels to this corner or just a little bit to the side. Okay, let's visualize how this looks in with everything turned on. Just going to reset the layer combination, and now, yeah, pretty much it's looking quite decent. And I want to bet that I didn't miss any type of pilasters. So pretty much that's solved for the pilasters. Okay, let's do the same for the bond beams and lintels. I'm going to deactivate everything and simply activate the bond beams and the symbology masonry once again. Now let's select everything once again. If you notice, the symbology is gone because we also deactivated the pilasters, because if I remember, this is associated. So even if the labels are set in a layer which is still turned on, if you turn off the element which the label is associated with, it's going to disappear anyway. So just keep that small detail in mind. Let's just going to deactivate the pilasters once again. Let's select everything once again, document, annotation, and label the selected elements. So we're going to get the BB1 symbology, or whichever symbology you are using in your own country with your own standards. Just select everything, Ctrl G, to group everything all together, and simply move this a little to the side. Okay, something as this, and maybe move this a little bit over here so it stays something as this. Now be careful, because I'm pretty sure that we also get some duplicates. If you notice over here, yeah, we got a duplicate because we got a bond beam below and we got a bond beam above. So just keep that small detail in mind, because the symbology here is going to be duplicated because it tagged both of the elements in the same horizontal space. So just keep that small detail in mind. We can set it over here or simply set it BB1 by duplicate, and the same will happen over here and maybe over here. In this case it's not going to happen, but maybe in this opening, yeah, it's going to happen. And pretty much, well, we got a lintel over here, so just going to leave it as it is. Okay, let's once again reset the layer combination to masonry, and now yeah, we should be a little bit careful with this symbology because it's overlapping. So if you notice, if anything is overlapping, you can simply drag it and adjust it a little bit. Okay, the same over here, but okay, we can leave it as it is. Okay, now for the next step, my recommendation would be, and something we already covered in basic beam framework, which was just a quick recapitulation, was the automatic dimensioning. And you had two different types of automatic dimensioning, one of which is exterior, which you can use, for example, to dimension the 4 sides you got of your project, and one of which is interior, which is going to be positioned inside the volume you are building, or the dimension is going to position inside the limits of your building. Okay, for this case, since we want to get something as this, you can always label this manually, but I still believe it's going to be a little bit faster. We select all the walls and simply dimension this with this function. It's going to be much faster. I usually use this automatic dimensioning, but sometimes I go with the manual method. You can use it however you want. So let's select all the walls. Simply straight away select everything or just all the walls. Let's go to document, annotation, automatic dimensioning, and let's use the interior dimensioning over here. Let's activate this setting. Now you got few parameters you need to be on the lookout, one of which would be if you want to dimension the different columns through the center or by the endpoints, and how you want to dimension the composites, whether it's going to be all the skins, or if you want to automatically, well, this one you can turn it on, or either way this one over here, if you want to dimension the skins or just the whole wall by the outer faces, by the core faces, or maybe by the reference lines. So just going to keep it at outer faces. Hopefully it works out quite well. Let's press OK. Now I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm having a little bit of trouble with, I really don't know if it's some type of bug or some type of issue. So I'm just going to demonstrate you maybe with some fresh type of example. If you have the same example, it might work for you, it might not. Just keep in mind that the process is pretty much the same. You have your walls, annotation, automatic dimensioning, interior dimension, press OK. You can select the part you want to extract, let's say this one over here, and simply then press left click on the interior. So this is how the interior dimensioning works, and if you notice, it's going to slash the different walls across your project. But as already telling you, I'm having a little bit of trouble for some reason with my project. It might depend a lot of cases, maybe I didn't pay attention and modeled the project a little bit off or offset for some reason. Let's see if I can maybe once again try something interior over here. Left click, well, it's going to give me this type of trouble. If it gives you this type of trouble, the workaround would be much simpler than it looks. You can simply position the dimension manually. I believe that is also going to be not fast as in automatic dimension, but quite fast for this case. Alright, so for this case, as I already mentioned, if you have some type of issue with the automatic dimensioning, go ahead with the manual method. You can also try out the exterior dimensioning if you want to maybe add extra dimensions on the outside. I leave the decision up to you. But as always, take as much time as you need. Make sure that you solve your masonry plan. You can even continue with extra dimensions, such as, for example, the angles you got in each of the sides. If you got some type of diagonal type of wall, always make sure to include a few of the other types of dimensions, such as, for example, angle dimension, level dimensions. You can add the radial dimensions. There are many dimensions you can add. As a small detail, we can also add a few level dimensions. I believe that in the masonry, well, we don't have the levels, but just in case, we can also add them. Set the layer also as symbology masonry, and add these extra level dimensions so the documentation is a little bit more complete. Okay, maybe one over here and maybe one extra over here. And don't forget that once you are done with your documentation, make sure to go to the view map. Let's finally but not least click over here, save current view, set it to be on custom and custom over here. This one is going to be masonry number 1, ground floor, or maybe even so. Okay, let's set it to ground floor, and let's just set this the zoom in to fit in the window. So everything's looking good. Let's hit the create button. And with this, now we have the foundation, structure, and masonry. We need to be careful with the layers because this one is important. So let's select these types of dimensions we got over here, the interior ones, and fix the layer real quick so it doesn't interfere with the other types of documentation. So we got foundation, structure, and finally mason. Okay, so as always, take as much time as you need. Make sure to fix up and complete the masonry documentation. And in the next lesson, we can continue, for example, with the different types of finishes where we are going to program the specific tag or label we require for the finishes. Alright, so for the finishes, you will notice that we have this specific type of tag or label going on here, which is also, we can solve it with the label tool, and the best part is that the label will automatically adjust accordingly to the reference line we got in the walls. So if you got a wall which is completely horizontal, the label is going to be set perpendicular. If the wall rotates, it's always going to set perpendicularly speaking. And you can program the ID to be inside the label, so the ID is going to read the ID we have for the composite, which is quite amazing because traditionally what we do usually is we set, copy and paste each of the different tags or labels one by one, and then we need to also orient or rotate each of the labels one by one, and this is extremely time consuming, something you can solve almost instantly by the automatic labeling function. Okay, so keep in mind we got one label for the walls, we got another label for the floors, okay, and then we got another label for the finishes of the ceiling or the ceiling itself. Okay, so let's go back to ArchiCAD. First things first, we need to set the layer combination. In this case, it's going to be the finishes in walls and floors, because in ceiling, don't forget that this is where the object is going to be turned on, but in the walls and floors, this is going to be deactivated. Now let's continue with the partial structure display instead of the core. Let's visualize the finishes or the entire model over here. And with the model view options, let's set this to be in the finishes. Okay. Now, since we definitely need to visualize the floor over here, we might also deactivate the graphic override. And this is clearly the reason why we try to solve this with graphic overrides, because if you manage to deactivate the fill you got but on the object, you would have some type of trouble going on with the finishes plan. So let's simply set the graphic overrides to no overrides. So we got the base visualization now. And now what we have to do is program correctly or accordingly the correct label we require for the walls. First things first, let's set the layer for the label in the symbology walls and slabs layer over here. And in second place, let's go over here to the parameters we got in the label. For the type of label we are going to use, in this case, since we want to extract the ID we got inside the composite, we might use in this case the composite or profile name. And I want to recapitulate something we also did a little bit ago in the previous lessons. If you remember, this is clearly the reason why we named all the composites with some type of ID. So the label will read the name of the composite, which also works as an ID. And with this, we can tag or label this much easier. Okay, so whichever name you have, it's going to display in the composite or profile name label you got over here. So if you want to program the label to have some type of triangular shape, what you have to do is be extremely careful for these steps. In first place, you need to activate the frame. This is the most important parameter, and one of the parameters that many of my students miss, because if you don't have the frame turned on, you won't even have the option to specify which type of label geometry you want to set for your label. So first things first, make sure to have the frame turned on. Let's set the text to be right in the middle. Maybe we can set it to bold type of text. Let's set the pointer to be completely deactivated. We definitely don't want the pointer for this case, because the label is going to be completely geometric. Okay. Now for the orientation, the first orientation is by default the perpendicular one. So I would advise that you don't change the orientation. But if you need some different type of orientation, maybe you want to create a label which is parallel to the wall, or maybe has some type of custom type of angle going on, you can always set it with these different options. In this case, let's set it for now by default. It's going to work out perfectly fine. And now what we have to do is start customizing the geometry, the general settings, and pretty much everything related to the label. In general settings, we don't need to adjust anything yet, but the magic is going to happen in label geometry. And this is where you can set the shape you want for your label. In this case, we might experiment with maybe triangle up, or maybe try out the triangle down. Something else to keep in mind is that the frame is going to be automatically adjusted depending on the text. So make sure to deactivate this frame and maybe set this to be something a little bit more static, so everything has the same size across your full documentation. Okay. And for the leader line, this is a small line that is going to be included with the label, because you are going to have this line plus the geometry you specify over here. We don't turn it off. It's going to look some type of grid in short words. Okay, so let's make sure to deactivate the leader line. Also make sure to adjust a little bit the offset, maybe start off with 0. But this is something we can adjust little by little with a little bit of trial and error. For now, let's leave the parameters as it is. Let's press OK, see how it's going to work out, and make sure that you click on the wall. Let's left click over here, and if you notice, the label is almost completely set, almost perfectly set. We got the shape we are looking for, has a decent type of size, and the offset, well, we still need to adjust a little bit more the offset for the label. We also might consider maybe add some type of background for the label so it doesn't stay as transparent. So let's go back to the parameters. Let's see if we can set this to maybe some type of 4 millimeters. Okay, with this it's looking quite decent. So if we label, for example, this wall over here, yeah, it's going to label this automatically, and this one will also be labeled automatically, which is looking quite good for now. Okay, if you want to make it transparent, you can leave it. If you want to add some type of background, you can do so by selecting your label, and you can adjust this in the text style. If you activate the opaque type of parameter you have over here, this is where you can set the background. Simply press OK. And now you can notice that this one is transparent, but this other label now is opaque, and you won't visualize maybe this line going on over here. For this case, I'm going to leave it transparent. I think it's much better if we leave it as it is. And with this, yeah, we can say that pretty much it's done. If you want to, for some reason, flip your label, instead of being on the left, you want to set it on the right, you can also do so if you go to the parameters and you activate in symbol label custom settings. If you go over here to general settings and activate the flip label parameter you got over here, press OK. As you can see, it's going to completely flip and automatically flip the label. So it's not going to stay in the inside, but it's going to stay on the outside. And even so, if you want to adjust it a little bit better, you can set the offset to maybe something as 0. So the label is going to stay touching exactly the point you got over here. Okay, so with the label ready, let's proceed now to pick up the parameters you got over here. Just activate the pick up parameter command you got over here. Pick up the parameters for the label. And now let's select all the walls and simply go to Document, Annotation, and label the selected elements. And as by art of magic, with just one click, we have finished labeling the different finishes. Okay, now you might as well maybe select some few of these labels and adjust them just a little bit. If it still intersects for some reason, you can also play a little bit around with this parameter, maybe set it once again to 4 or even 3 millimeters. Let's see how it behaves, or even so, yeah, a little bit less, until it correctly adjusts to your documentation. Okay, so as you can see, with this we have finished labeling the walls. You might even, if you want to flip this, don't forget general settings, deactivate the flip command. It's going to be completely flipped, and now you can simply once again adjust this parameter. But yeah, it's pretty much set. We don't even adjust anything. Maybe with this one over here, set it to maybe 2 millimeters, or even so 4 millimeters, and there we go. I think this one is because I labeled it manually when I press click over here, and ArchiCAD automatically will label this to the center. So just keep that small detail in mind. Okay, now we still need to label the floor, and we still need to specify where the first piece for the floor is going to be set. So this is something we also need to specify. Let's first off solve the label. Once again, pick up the parameters for your label. Let's go, in this case, simply switch the frame shape, set it to rectangular, and make sure that the width and the height will match, or simply just activate this parameter. Well, you can set it however you want. Just going to set it 15 by 15, press OK, and left click just once on the floor you got in your project. And with this you have labeled the floor. Now let's see what else we are still missing. So yeah, pretty much the labels are solved. We simply need to adjust this extra symbology, which is quite easy, because what you have to do is simply go over here to the document fill, command fill tool you got over here, activate the geometry method rectangular. Let's specify maybe some type of another type of fill. which might be something as brass, bronze, or maybe common brick, something as this. I'm just going to set this to drafting fill, and let's maybe draw the shape of one of the tiles, which is going to be, okay, I'm going to specify first things first the correct layer for this case, which is going to be symbology finishes. And now let's draw the tile, which is going to be 0.60 by 0.60. Okay, make sure to select the tile by pressing the tab key. So you just be careful that you select the fill, right click it, display order, and bring to the front. Let's move the tile until it adjusts to this corner. And yeah, this is what I was trying to guess, that the tile is not going to fit because we have this small issue going on here where we need to specify the correct origin for this floor. So you can fix this real easy, something we also covered in the past lessons and in the past section. Pretty sure it was the first type of section. Let's go over here to the cover fill apartment in the parameters for the slab, and let's make sure that the cover fill orientation is set to link to fill origin. Let's press OK. Let's see if we can adjust it. My guess is that it's these two nodes we got over here. So what you can do is left click on one of the nodes. So as you can see, it is going to move the origin for your slabs, and simply set it on this corner. Okay, right on the finish, right over here. So now we can set the first tile exactly on the corner. Just going to zoom in a little bit extra, that extra detail. And now you can simply use the line tool, add some type of arrowhead, go over here. Okay, the layer is going to be symbology, left click. Or if you want to center this, you can press Q to use quick guidelines, 0.60, bring this to the front. Okay, I'm going to invert the arrow, and let's press Ctrl E and Ctrl to create a copy of the arrow. Okay, and finally but not least, you can even group everything, Ctrl G, so it stays grouped all together. So with this, we are pretty much done with the finishes in walls and floor. Don't forget to, as always, simply save your documentation. Just going to name this finishes number 1, walls and floors, something as this. Okay, fit in window, create the view, and pretty much so far so good. We got 4 different types of documentation pretty much set. Okay, so as always, take as much time as you need. Make sure to solve and program your label as best as possible. And in the next lesson, we can continue with the other type of finishes. Okay, so let's move on to the next type of documentation. First things first, let's set the correct layer combination, which is going to be ceiling. Yeah, pretty much that's it. We don't really need to adjust anything else. Now, be careful with the label. I'm just going to take maybe pick up the parameters for the base label we got over here. Let's once again adjust the layer combination. If I remember well, the label for the ceiling is going to change a little bit because we are not using some type of composite, we are using an object. So for this case, we could try to use another type of label, because if we simply press left click on the ceiling, it's not going to work out. It's going to give us something else. Okay, so for this case, how about we use maybe the most basic type of label, which is text or auto text. Let's see if it allows us to add some type of custom geometry to it. Activate the frame, deactivate the pointer, and in text label, as you can see, no, it's not going to allow us to use some type of custom geometry, which is a complete letdown. Maybe we can go ahead and select maybe the property label. See how it works out. Just make sure to visualize real quick if you have the possibility to add a label geometry. And in this case, you can notice that yes, it's going to allow us to add a geometry. For the basic type of label, yeah, it's unfortunate that we can't add a geometry, but for the property label, we might try out this one in this case. Okay, so let's repeat once again the process. First things first, activate the frame, make sure to deactivate the pointer. Then in symbol, label, custom settings, let's make sure that in the label geometry, we set this to some type of circle. The circle is going to be 20 by 20. Deactivate the leader line, and let's offset this maybe to 0, something as this, okay? Let's press OK. I'm just going to test this out real quick. Let's left click over here. And if you notice, yeah, it's extracting some type of ID for this specific object. The ID, you can simply set it and fix it in the general ID you got over here. So if you set this to maybe ceiling number 1, something as this, or whichever type of ID you want to use, maybe it's C1, in this manner you can use and adjust your label accordingly. So I'm just going to set it to C1, press OK, and with this we can say that the label is pretty much set. Maybe we can rotate a little bit the label, just orient this a little bit better, but doesn't allow us to rotate it. You can also try rotating the label from the symbol label parameters. Maybe set it to vertical orientation. Yeah, it's going to set this, it's going to behave in the same manner. But as you can see, the horizontal orientation is going to manage your text horizontally. So in case you have some type of trouble where your label is visualizing in a vertical way, you can always set the orientation to horizontal. Okay, press OK. And with this, we can say that the label is pretty much done. And finally, we can, for example, just adjust maybe the size, because I feel that it's just way too much. I'm going to set it maybe 15 by 15. Even so, I'm just going to add maybe some type of background so it stays opaque. Press OK. So yeah, pretty much it's looking decent now. Let's see. Okay, everything is set. Finally, but not least, let's make sure that we save a copy for this visualization, which is going to be finishes number 2. Ceiling. Zoom in, fit in window, press create, and pretty much we are set with the finishes for the project. So as always, take as much time as you need. Make sure that you document the finishes, and in the next lesson we can continue with the last type of documentation, which would be the carpentry, the glazing, the architectural, something basic we still haven't solved, and the preliminaries. Alright, so the process for carpentry and glazing, or doors and windows, cabinets and all that stuff is going to be a little bit different. You got two different ways you can solve this, one of which would be internally speaking for each of the objects, and another one also using the label tool. Now, I'm not going to use the second way, but I'm just going to explain it to you. If you want to go ahead and also use the label tool for doors and windows, you also got the opening label, which is specially for doors and windows. But keep in mind that this one, let's say this one is going to be the plan B. If it doesn't work out with the plan A, which is already included within doors and windows, and which is something we actually already did in basic BIM framework, where I explained how you can create your own labels included with the doors. So yeah, you definitely want to go with the plan A, which is internally speaking, okay? But you also always have the second way. So first things first, let's set the correct layer combination, which is going to be, let's set it to carpentry. Pretty sure the glazing is pretty much the same, so we can even simplify maybe these two layer combinations in just one. No need to duplicate this. Let's set it to carpentry. Now let's go ahead with the doors. I'm just going to select these two doors we got over here. Let's go to the parameters, and something we already commented in basic BIM framework is that you can always activate a dimension marker for each door, for each opening or window, any type of opening you want to use. You can set it to be some type of basic window door skylight marker, or some type of specific type of marker you want for your door. Maybe some type of door stamp, whichever type you want to use. For this case, since we are looking for something basic, which is going to include just a basic type of ID in the doors and windows, something as this, we might as well use the D marker or door marker 27, the most basic one. Let's go ahead and configure a little bit the parameters. Just going to straight away jump into the marker symbol and text. Let's deactivate the extension line, simply one line that is included within the label. And with the marker head turned on, you can also set the geometry you want for your label. You can set the position, how much it's going to offset. The position, you got 3 different positions over here. You can also, for example, flip the marker, whether it's going to be positioned on the outside, inside, in one of the both of the sides, simply with this parameter flip marker over here. And also you got the different parameters about the content, about the text, about the 2D representation. In terms of content, I would recommend that you maintain the show ID command, but you deactivate maybe the dimensions, because if you set it as it is, let's simply visualize how it's going to represent. Press OK. Keep in mind that it's not going to turn on because it also depends on the model view options. So don't forget that over here, if this one is turned off, it's not going to represent even if you activate it within the door. So you also need to set the correct model view option. For this case, it's going to be carpentry. And in this manner, you can see now that the label is visualizing. And if you notice over here, yeah, we got, for example, a line that you can turn off or you can turn on or maintain however you want. You got the ID for the door and you got the dimensions. So once again, depending on the standards you got on your country, you can maintain this, you can configure this however you want. For this case, I'm going to just keep it simple. Just going to deactivate maybe the dimensions. Press OK. So pretty much so far so good. And now let's select the door and let's assign the correct ID for the door in the same manner we always did. Set this to maybe something a little bit less, something as DEOS01. Okay, a little bit more simplified. The same will go for this other door. Keep in mind that the leaf for the door is different, so I'm just going to name it the second type of door. So we got door number 1 and door number 2. So with this, we can pretty much say that we are done with the visualization we require for carpentry plan or door plan, however you want to call it. Now keep in mind that we're also going to, in the upcoming section, we are also going to comment how you can create a door table, where you are going to start linking the different ID to the table we are going to create. So you have 2 different documentation which are going to stay related. Something we're going to comment in the upcoming section, but for this case, let's just focus on this basic visualization. Okay, so let's go ahead. Finally, but not least, make sure to save this as carpentry number 1. Set it to fit in window, press create. Okay, now let's go ahead with the glazing. I'm just going to set the layer combination and let's activate the correct model view option, which is going to be glazing over here. Everything else looking good. Let's go ahead to the same manner, select all the windows, press Ctrl A over here, go to the parameters, activate the dimension marker, which is going to be the basic window marker 27, and straight away in the parameters, let's deactivate the extension line. Let's set the dimensions turn off, and the ID is going to be turned on. Well, you also got an extra parameter, which is the window seal or the seal height. Just if you want to maintain it however you want, but just going to deactivate it also once again. Press OK. And with this, yeah, it's something not convincing, but we still got a lot of offset going on over here. So let's go back to the parameters. Let's see if we can fix this real quick. In the marker geometry, I would start messing around with marker position parameter. Maybe set this to something as 5 millimeters. Press OK. So yeah, pretty much looking good. Much better than before. Now the last thing would be, let's select the windows. Let's assign the correct ID. In ID and properties, this one is going to be window number 1. Okay, the sliding type of window. And for the fixed type of window, which is going to be this one. Be careful when you are selecting your windows, because you need to click specifically on the corner. This is how you can quickly select your window. Hold down Shift, select this one, and finally but not least, assign the correct ID. So pretty much we are set with the basic visualization. Once again, you can also create a table for or the symbology or the visualization for your windows in a table format, something we're going to do in the next lesson. But for now, let's simply finally save this as glazing and set this to fit in window, create the visualization. And now you got the different finishes, the ground floor for the carpentry or the doors, and the glazing ground floor. So as always, take as much time as you need. Make sure you create your 2 extra ground floors. And in the next lesson, we can continue with the last plans, which would be the architectural and the easiest one, which is preliminaries. Okay, so finally but not least, let's go ahead with the architecture. Let's set the correct layer combination. Let's set the entire model in the finishes. Let's set the correct model view option, architecture, no rights. And yeah, pretty much we're done, which is just as basic as it gets. We might even add the finished floor levels, because if you remember in the masonry, we added the levels but for the core. And in this case, we want to add the levels but for the finishes. So in this case, let's activate once again in document the level dimension tool we got over here. Set the correct symbology layer, architectural, maybe set the level over here and left click. With this, we have added basic type of levels. So let's go ahead, simply save the last documentation, which is going to be architecture, ground floor. Set this to fit in window and create the extra plan. Okay. And for preliminaries, well, I guess I don't really need to explain this, because activate the correct layer combination trace. Pretty much that's it. So let's go ahead, simply save the grid positions, which is going to be preliminaries, something as this. Fit in window, create the view. And now we can say that we are done with this section. So as you can see, the workflow, yeah, it's going to have some type of detail, but the workflow gets quite easy once you understand how you can start combining the different filters you got over here to create each one of the special type of documentation for each part of your building, for each type of specialty. You can go on to generate symbology documentation, some type of gardening documentation, structural documentation, substructures, document all type of map or facility elements. There are many applications you can always give the different filters we got over here. But hopefully with this, we explained and we covered the main framework on how you can combine the main filters to automatically generate all type of 3D and 2D documentation. So as always, take as much time as you need. Make sure that you finish up setting up the different views for each of the specialties for your project. And in the next section, we are going to cover something even much better. And well, I hope you now have a clear understanding of how to utilize the various functions we have reviewed within ArchiCAD to create and document any type of specialty plan you require from your constructive BIM model. You can also begin to integrate the detail tool to extract specific views and further annotate and enhance your documentation. The next module will be a bit extensive, so brace yourself, as we'll cover everything related to the quantification process in ArchiCAD, as well as the creation of additional documentation such as tables or schedules for doors and windows, or even furniture catalogs. Don't forget to take a break before starting the next session, and without further ado, I'll see you in the next module.